but it only works if the views are authentically arrived at. The only thing you can learn from Sviarsky that way would be things about how to hold a good dinner party, because that's what the views are respected. The landowner is not interested in holding a good dinner party. His views actually come from these experiences, and as Tolstoy says, they're actually having authentic views which are often disconfirmed, which are subject to change in the light of experience, which grow from experience. That's rare. People much more prefer to adopt their views, well, because everybody thinks this way. All the good people think this way. I'm not going to lose my friends by picking something else, and so on. So that's how most people think of their views. They want to pat themselves on the back, or be socially acceptable. The landowner doesn't. And this is, Tolstoy is constantly interested in what is authentic in the world, right? Same with Kitty trying to make herself a better person. You don't do it by copying Varyaman. So here we have the authenticity of views come from experience up. Reforms work if they come from experience up. You make yourself a better person. Your views, all of these work by actually reflecting on experience, not by borrowing something wholesale, ready-made. Okay, and you're going to see there's one more area, in addition to reforms, views, and individual betterment and self-betterment, where this reasoning applies. On page 385, Levin tries to have a conversation with Sviarsky, tries to get him, listen, your reforms just don't work. Tries to get through to him, but you can no more get that point across to Sviarsky than you can force a conversation on Anna that she doesn't want. He's protected by all sorts of rhetorical devices against ever hearing a view that contradicts his proper liberal opinions. Okay? And he's good at it, too. So Levin is saying, the peasants don't want this machinery you're trying to impose. It doesn't work. For whatever reason, they don't want it. And you're dealing with real peasants. And he says in page 385, but I really don't know what it is you were surprised at, says Sviarsky. The people are at such a low stage of rational and moral development, people here means peasants, that it's obvious they're bound to oppose everything that's strange to them. In Europe, a rational system succeeds because people are educated. It follows that we must educate the people, that's all. For Levin, he was saying, this is a formula. It's one of those ready-made expressions that disposes of problems with a fashionable answer, which is not examined. But how are we to educate the people? It's all very well to say, let's educate them. How? What do you teach? How do you teach it? How do you organize the school? What is it that the peasants need to know? What will they accept to know? Just say, educate the peasants. Says nothing. But it feels like it says something. You see, that's his point here. And how are we to educate the peasants? And Sviarsky replies, to educate the peasants, three things are needed. Schools, schools, and schools. Now even from the distance of 140 years, you can recognize a cliche when you hear it, right? We have the one, the equivalent one. If you're by a house, you'll know it, that the value of real estate depends on three things: location, location, and location, right? Well, this is obviously the same witticism back then, right? Answering a real point with a witticism is what you do to protect yourself. But you said yourself that people are at such a low stage of development. What about for schools for them? Do you know you remind me of the story of the advice given to the sick man? You should try a laxative. Take it. Worse. Try leeches. Tried them. Worse. Well, then there's nothing left but to pray to God. Tried it. Worse. That's just how it is with us. I say political economy. You say worse. I say socialism. Worse. Education. Worse. You're the ones who can actually face what kind of education, how precisely will it work, how will it help, why? Now, just don't give me these rhetorical answers, right? But how do schools help matters? give the peasant fresh needs. That was a cliche at the time, you see. If you expand people's desires, then they'll embrace reforms more to satisfy their desires. Well, that's the thing I've never understood, Levin replied. In what ways are schools going to help the people to improve their material position? You say schools, education will give them fresh needs. So much the worse, since they won't be able to satisfy those needs. Then he tells a story. The day before yesterday, he says, I met a peasant woman in the evening with a little baby and asked her where she was going. She said she was going to the village sorceress. Her boy had screaming fits, so she was taking him to the doctor. I asked, why? How does the wise woman cure screaming fits? Oh, well, she puts the child on the hand roost and repeats some charms. Now, Stransky has missed the point of the story. He thinks the story is about how people are superstitious. So he says, well, you're saying it yourself. What's needed is to prevent her from taking the child to cure it of self-screaming fits. It's just he needs education. Oh, no, said Levin with annoyance. That method, you missed the point. That method of doctoring I merely meant as a simile for doctoring the people with schools. The people are poor and ignorant. That, we see, as surely as the peasant woman sees the baby is ill because it screams. But in what way this trouble of poverty and ignorance is to be cured by schools is as incomprehensible as how the hen roost affects the screaming. What has to be cured is what makes him poor. Well, you understand what he's saying here? Peasants have superstitions. Magic words they repeat, thinking they're going to be better. Intellectuals are no better. They just have different magic words. They'll say, schools, whatever the magic word is of the day, and think that solves the matter. And it no more solves the matter than that sorceress's charm solves the matter. But it feels like it does because we are subject to magic words as they are. They're just different magic words. Back to Anna. Go to page 411 to 12. This is the sequence when Karenina has let Anna continue to occupy her position in society, have everything she wants, no penalty whatsoever. There's only one thing he asks: do not meet your lover at our house. Now you would think this is not a terribly onerous request, but she breaks it when she thinks Karenina is out, and Karenina runs into Vronsky in the doorway, if you remember. So on page 411, she's talking to Vronsky about it. How was it then? Where did you meet Alexei Alexandrovich? The tone of her voice was unnatural and jarring. We ran up against each other in the doorway. And he bowed to you like this? And she goes, a perfect expression on his face, mocking. Again, this mimicry, right? I don't understand him in the least, said Vronsky. If after your talk to him in the country he had broken with you, if he had challenged me to a duel. But this I can't understand. How he can put up with such a situation. He feels it. That's evident. He? No, she says. He doesn't feel it. He's perfectly satisfied. And further down the page, he's not a man, not a human being. He's a puppet. I mean, the dehumanization can hardly go further. And notice what Vronsky's solution is. Think how ridiculous it is. He should have challenged me to a duel. Think about that for a moment. Vronsky, he who has never held a pistol in his hand, who's a bureaucrat, should challenge Vronsky that is an officer who spends his life around weapons and fights lots of duels. What is going to happen here? It's perfectly obvious. His Karenina will be killed in a duel, that's all. That's his remedy. Clearly, and this is not Vronsky being nasty. It's that he just cannot see it from any other point of view. This is what people in the army do. And he doesn't have any other perspective, you see, from it. And even Karenina, you know, is going to worry, gee, was I a coward for not challenging him to a duel? Is that the right ethic to adopt? And then further on page 415, Karenina comes to confront her for violating his one request. Sit down. I have to speak to you, he said, putting the portfolio under his arm and squeezing it so tight with his elbow that his shoulder lifted up. Amazed and intimidated, she gazed at him in silence. I told you, but I would not allow you to receive your lover in this house. I had to see him too. She stopped, not finding a reason. I do not enter into the details of why a woman wants to see her lover. Now, that sounds harsh, but it's actually exactly right. I mean, oh yeah, well, you can't have your lover in the house, except when, of course, you really need to. It's not much of a, it's not really a prohibition in that case, is it? I meant I only, she said, flushing hotly, the coarseness of his anger at her and gave her courage. Surely you must see how easy it is for you to insult me. An honest man and an honest woman may be insulted, but to tell a thief he's a thief, to tell a woman that she has a lover, is what he means, is simply the statement of a fact. This cruelty is something I did not know in you before. Remember what she said, how can he accept this? If he confronted me, if he lost his temper, then he'd be a man, but he has no feeling, he just lets it happen. Now he is, and she's calling it cruelty. You call it cruelty for a husband to give his wife freedom, giving her the honorable protection of his name? He doesn't mention the money, but she is aware of it. Simply on the condition of observing the proprieties? Is that cruelty? It's worse than cruel. It's base, if you want to know. You can see he can't win here. Anna cried in a rush of hatred, and getting up, she began to leave. No, he shrieked in a shrill voice, which rose a note higher than usual, and his big hands clutching by the arm so violently that red marks were left on the bracelet he was squeezing. He forcibly sat her down in place. Base, if you care to use that word. What is base is to forsake husband and child for a lover while you eat your husband's bread. She bowed her head, but she did not say what she had said the evening before to her lover, that he was her husband, and her husband was superfluous. You cannot describe my position as worse than I feel it to be myself. What are you saying all this for? What am I saying it for? What for, he went on angrily, that you may know that since you have not carried out my wishes in regard to observing outward decorum, I will take measures to put an end to this state of affairs. He means a divorce. Soon, very soon, it will end anyway, she said. She means, I'm going to die in childbirth. She's had this dream, you remember? Remember this dream? She dreams of the peasant beating the iron and saying French words of it, over it. It's necessary to beat the iron, mold the iron. And in that dream, this time, she wakes not to wakefulness, but to a second dream. It was a dream within a dream, where she is told that the dream means she will die in childbirth. And as Anna believes omens, she believes in significant dreams. We would say she believes her unconscious is telling her something. Soon, very soon it will end anyway, she said, and again, as a thought of death near at hand, and now desire, tears came into her eyes. It will end sooner than you lover have planned. If you must have the satisfaction of animal passion, of course that isn't the reason for her, but that's all he can understand. Alexei Alexandrovich, I won't say it's not generous, but it's not like a gentleman to strike one who's down. And he goes, who is down here? Yes, you think only of yourself, he says. But the sufferings of the man who was your husband have no interest for you. You don't care that his whole life is ruined, that he is suffering. Alexei Alexandrovich was speaking so quickly that he stammered and was utterly unable to articulate the word suffering. In the end, he pronounced it suffering. She wanted to laugh, and was immediately ashamed that anything could amuse her at such a moment. And for the first time, for an instant, she felt to him, put herself in his position, and was sorry for him. But what could she do, etc. Do you understand the point here? This is another one of those camouflaged moments of immense significance. For the first time, she put herself in his position. The affair has been going on for how long? Months and months. And not once has she put herself in his position. This is a way of describing non-actions, what a person hasn't done. So I say later on, for the first time, which means never before. You see, non-actions can be morally enormously significant. And it's not that Anna is incapable of them. Quite the contrary, we know she is. But she has not done it once. It would be possible to have her affair and yet have done that. But she's guarded herself from that. The next sections we get come at the dinner at Steva's. Steva is so hospitable. Nobody can resist his cheerfulness and hospitality. Then he actually manages to get Karenina to come to his dinner party. Karenina tries to say, but you know, I'm divorcing your sister, so I really shouldn't be at your... Oh, what difference does that make? Just come, we'll all enjoy ourselves. Right? Which is just how, how Steva thinks. And I won't go through this whole dinner party for you, but two important incidents happen at it. One of them is that both Levin and Kitty are there, and you're saying the setup is she wants him to propose again, and is afraid he won't. And he wants to know, before he subjects himself to humiliation again, whether she's likely to accept him. So neither wants to make the first move. And there's a possibility it won't be made at all, therefore. But they have this wonderful letterbox scene. They're going to spell out words with letters on the table. And you remember the scene. She writes something like, or he writes, something like that, right? How do you interpret that, right? And she instantly comes up with, when you said, it can never be, did you mean then or always? Needless to say, this is in Russian, I just put it in English, right? How could you do that? Now, if you're not reading the book, the way Tolstoy wants you to do that is in terms of realism, you'll say, oh, they had some deep mystical connection. Which is sort of like saying that this dream of the peasant is an omen. Something might feel like a mystical connection or an omen. That certainly exists in the world. But it isn't a mystical connection or an omen. The point is, you see, that they have both been ruminating on that moment when she refused him. Over and over again since it happened, so that her precise words are etched in their brain with enormous emotional charge. And those words are, it can never be. So when she sees this, she knows what that means. And then it's a lot easier to reconstruct. You see, when you said, you can, and she stares and grabs, she can read. It's not about a mystical connection. It's about two people, for understandable reason, thinking about the very same thing over and over again. Well, the other thing that happens, if you turn to page 448, this dinner party, is Dolly confronts Karenina. Dolly thinks of Anna as her friend, and thinks of Karenina, therefore, as being very cruel at wanting to divorce her friend. But by the end of this interview, she changes her mind. Bottom of 448. Alexei Alexandrovich, forgive me, I have no right. I love Anna as a sister and esteem her. What fault do you find with her? Alexander Alexandrovich frowned, and almost closing his eyes, he lowered his head. I presume that your husband has told you the grounds on which I consider it necessary to change my relation with Anna Karenina, he said, not looking her in the face, using the formal language as his only resource, and not looking her in the face because it's too painful. But eyeing with displeasure, Scherbatsky was walking across the dining room in case he should be aware. Remember, at the dinner, Steve tries to steer the conversation away from anything that might touch on a sore spot. But the conversation does keep going to husbands of unfaithful wives, and one of them said about one husband who called out his wife's lover to a duel and shot him. Now that was a real man for you. This does not make Karenina feel very good. And he's completely embarrassed. I don't believe it. I can't believe it, Dolly said. She rose quickly and laid her hand on Alexander Alexandrovich's sleeve. We shall be disturbed here. Come this way, please. So she senses his embarrassment. Dolly's agitation had an effect on Alexander Alexandrovich. He got up and submissively followed her. I don't believe it, Dolly said, trying to catch his glance that avoided her. One cannot disbelieve facts, Darya Alexandrovna, said he, with an emphasis on the word facts. But what has she done? What precisely has she done? She has forsaken her duty and deceived her husband. That's what she has done. He has to beat around the bush. He can hint at the meaning. He can't say it exactly. He would say, well, it's just too painful. No, it can't be. For God's sake, you are mistaken, said Dolly, putting her hands to her temples and closing her eyes. It is extremely difficult to be mistaken, he says, when a wife herself informs her husband of the fact, informs him that 8 years of her life and his son, all that is a mistake, and that she wants to begin life over again, he said angrily with a snort. Anna and sin, I cannot connect them, I can't believe it. Darya Alexandrovna, he said, now looking straight into Dolly's kindly, troubled face, and feeling that his tongue was being loosened in spite of himself. I would give a great deal for doubt to be still possible. When I doubted, I was miserable, but it was better than now. When I doubted, I had hope, but now there is no hope. And still, I doubt everything. I am in such doubt of everything that I even hate my son, and sometimes do not believe he is my son. I am very unhappy. He had no need to say that. Darya Alexandrovna had seen that as soon as he glanced into her face, and she felt sorry for him, and her faith in the innocence of her friend began to totter. Oh, this is awful. But can it be true that you are resolved for a divorce? I'm resolved on extreme measures. Nothing else for me to do. Nothing else to do. Don't say that. What is horrible in trouble of this kind is that one cannot, as any other, is loss and death, bear one's trouble in peace, but that one must act. I understand that, said Dolly. Of course she would. You see, she's been in the same situation. She was silent for a little, thinking of herself, of her own grief and her family, and all at once, with an impulsive movement, she tried her hand and clasped her hands with an imploring gesture. But wait, you're a Christian. Think of her. What will become of her if you cast her off? A Christian must always think of the other person first and must forgive. She is forgiven. Why doesn't he? Well, the scene actually makes a difference. Although he doesn't say so at this point. What follows, now, starting on pages 466 to 73, is one of the most remarkable, most famous passages in world literature. This is the passage where Karenina, at Anna's bedside, when everyone thinks she's dying in childbirth, when it looks like she will die, contrary to everything that he had thought possible, that anyone had thought possible, he winds up not only forgiving her, but experiencing real Christian love. And by Christian love, I mean something beyond forgiveness. Remember, in in the Christian gospel, it says not just if a man strike thee on one cheek, turn to him the other. If he takes thy coat, give him thy cloak also. Respond. If he makes you walk a mile with him, walk two. Not just return good for evil, but even more. It says, you have heard it said, love those who love you and hate those who hate you. But I say unto you, love your enemies. That's what a Christian is supposed to do. And everybody with any sense of psychology, basically everybody, from that time to this, has thought that's a very noble ideal at best, but it is absolutely psychologically impossible. It can't happen. The most a writer can do is say, and then he loves his enemies. But he can't make it psychologically plausible because it isn't psychologically possible, and therefore no writer could make it psychologically plausible. Dostoevsky kept trying to do this, and he just couldn't make it plausible to his own mind. He could describe the state of feeling that way, but he couldn't describe the state of getting there. Okay? In the history of world literature, there are only 2 books that have done this successfully. One of them is called War and Peace, and the other one is called Anna Karenina. And yes, they are the only, which means the only writer who has done this is Tolstoy. The extreme realist who knows how the mind works in its tiniest changes and shifts knows that this is not, of course not common, extremely rare, but possible. And I'll just give you I want to show you how he does this. Because it shows you a lot about how he thinks the mind works. But I want to give you the general picture. You see, most people would say, okay, here you are and you're hating your enemy, and here you are loving your enemy. How do you get from one place to the other? Well, I can dream up an intermediate step here, and maybe he leaps over here, and then jumps 18 feet over there. Can't do it. But you see, Tolstoy knows the tiniest movements of consciousness. Where other people see one step, he sees 10. So he is able to make a tiny step, which is plausible, and another tiny step, which is plausible. Okay? And he does it step by tiny step. Each step you grant, and then you find yourself at the end, without ever being a leap. But you have to understand how consciousness works, and its tiniest alterations to do that. And that's what we're going to get in this scene. Now we're going to follow Karenina, but at each point we're also going to be imagining what other people he encounters are feeling, and when we see them, we're going to imagine what Karenina is feeling, right? At each point, just the way when we were following Steve's thoughts, we can imagine what Dolly would say if they were overheard. Here, we can even imagine what someone else is thinking. It doesn't have to be something impossible, like over here thoughts, just see the reactions. But you imagine what they must be thinking. So turn to page 466. Unconsciously, going over in his memory the conversation that had taken place during and after dinner, that's what we just talked about, Alexei Alexandrovich returned to his solitary room. Darya Alexandrovna's words about forgiveness had aroused in him nothing but annoyance. And now get this phrase, which is in his internal language. Okay? The applicability or non-applicability of the Christian precept to his own case was too difficult a question to be discussed lightly, and this question had long ago been answered by Alexei Alexandrovich in the negative. This is bureaucratic language. You might get in a law paper. The applicability of sections 4963 through to this case is highly problematic, and we have long ago decided in the negative. Decided in the negative. This is bureaucratic language. Okay? But still, Dolly's plea is in his mind. Of all that had been said, what most struck him was the phrase of silly good nature to Morson. Acted like a man he did, challenged him, shot him. Everyone apparently shared this feeling, though, from politeness they had not expressed it. Now, you see what's going, as this scene starts, a few things are going through his mind. One of them is his own humiliation. One of them is his refusal of Christian forgiveness, and Dolly appealing to that part of him. Another is, remember, his fear that his son is not his son. And yet another is the way he reacts to tears when he encounters them, can't control himself. All those is what we're starting out with here. Then he receives 2 telegrams. The first telegram, see, no other writer would give, one of them is from Anna, and no other writer would give you 2 telegrams. You dissipate the drama. You get a telegram from your wife, I am dying, come to me. And at the same time, you get another letter from the company that cleans your gutters and downspouts, suggesting that maybe you'd like to get them cleaned again this year. Nobody else would do something like that. Why dilute it? But isn't that how it always happens in life? Things don't come pure. This case, the telegram is more significant than the gutters and downspouts. He gets a telegram that the position that he wanted to be appointed to, his chief political rival has been appointed to instead. And it's with that frame of mind that he finally opens the second telegram. Something else in the same line, he said to himself bitterly, opening the second telegram. The telegram was from his wife. Her name, written in blue pencil, Anna, was the first thing that caught his eye. First thing he sees is the signature. Right? I am dying, I beg, I implore you to come. I shall die easy with your forgiveness, he read. He smiled contemptuously and flung down the telegram. This was a trick and a fraud. Of that, he thought for the first minute, there could be no doubt. There is no deceit, she would not try. She is near her confinement. Perhaps it is the confinement. But what can be their, and he thinks, but what can be their aim? You see, his first reaction is, it's a lie. And if you think that's harsh, later in the book, she does lie in that way to get Vronsky to come home. Our little child is severely ill, but it's not true. But then he thinks, what can be their aim? To legitimize the child and to compromise me and prevent a divorce, he thought? It would do nothing about any of those things. So what could possibly be her aim? Which gets him to think, gee, maybe it's true. And then he reads again, but something was said in it. I am dying. He read the telegram again, and suddenly the plain meaning of what was said in it struck him. Now you understand? He already read it before and he understood it. Otherwise he couldn't be saying they're deceiving me. But what does Tolstoy means? He read it again and understood it. You see, there's understanding and there's understanding. One understanding is the literal meaning of the words, but the other is place it in a real context. What does this really mean? What are the complications of it. What do I know? What is it related to? How does it... What is its real significance? Not just some fact out there, but actually ponder it. You see, there's understanding and understanding. And now he really understands it. She says she's dying. And what if she is? And if it's true, he said to himself, if it is true that in the moment of agony and nearness to death she is genuinely penitent, and I, taking for a trick, refused to go, that would not only be cruel and everyone blame me, but it would be stupid on my part. Pyotr, call a coach. I'm going to Petersburg, he said to his servant. Alexander decided that he would go to Petersburg and see his wife. If her illness was a trick, he would say nothing and go away again. If she was really in danger and wished to see him before her death, he would forgive her if he found her alive and pay her the last duties if he came too late. He would forgive her while she was alive, but this is not real forgiveness that he has in mind. This is saying, I forgive you. But that's not what real forgiveness is. It goes much deeper than that. But that's what he means here by it. All the way, he thought no more of what he ought to do. With the sense of weariness and feeling dirty from the night spent in the train, it's a long way from Moscow to Petersburg. What is it? Today, even today, it's about 11 hours by train, something like that. More or less? Something like that. He drove through the deserted Nevsky Prospect and stared straight before him, not thinking of what was awaiting him. He could not think about it, because in picturing what would happen, he could not drive away the reflection that her death would at once remove all the difficulty of his position. Right? He's trying not to think about it, because the moment he thinks about it, he thinks how welcome her death would be. But he knows that that's an immoral thought. To wish for her death is immoral. So he tries to drive the thought away. He's trying to do the moral thing here. It's really hard to do, and he's not really successful at it. Bakers, clothes shops, night cabmen, porters sweeping the pavement flashed past his eyes, and he watched it all, meaning trying to distract his attention, trying to swallow the thought of what was awaiting him, and what he dared not hope for, that is her death, and yet was hoping for. He drove up to the steps. A sleigh and a carriage with the coachman, asleep, stood at the entrance. Somebody is there. A sleigh and a coachman is there. That means somebody not in the household is present. Who could it be? Vronsky? A doctor if she's dying? You have, now it doesn't say he's thinking, but you've got to understand that's what you think instantly, right? As he went into the entry, Alexander seemed to draw his resolution from the remotest corner of his brain and mastered it thoroughly. Its meaning ran, if truth, do what is proper. The porter opened the door before Alexander's rang. Petrov, otherwise known as Kapitonich, looked strange in an old coat, without a tie, and in slippers. What does this mean? Why is he not dressed the way he usually is? Clearly, something serious is happening here, right? He must be thinking. She probably is extremely poor, right? How is your mistress? And then you get a sort of idiotic response.